Have you ever wondered how to deal with conflict management as a leader? It's a question I get from clients and students and friends and family members all the time. If you're a leader, then part of your work involves managing conflicts. Conflicts that occur with those on your team, conflicts that occur with those outside of your organization. And if you are not actively working to harness and manage that conflict well, then you are missing one of the most important aspects of leadership. And that's because all good leaders have this conflict management capability. In this video, I'm going to share 3 specific shifts you can make to tackle conflict management issues effectively as a leader. I'm also going to share a success story of one of my most favorite clients along the way. The first step is, as a leader, you need to shift your attitude toward conflict, and you need to normalize the idea of conflict as a force for good on your team. There is so much bad information out there in the world that conflict is a bad thing, that conflict is something that should be eliminated and avoided. That is simply not true. In fact, conflict is a source of dynamism, vibrancy, creativity, and in an organization, if you don't have conflict, you have problems, because conflict comes when people have different approaches, different ideas, and different opinions, and that's where creativity comes from. So the issue isn't, do we have conflict? The issue is, how do we handle conflict well in a way that optimizes its usefulness within the organization? When handled poorly, conflict is poisonous. When handled poorly, conflict reduces morale. It leads to high turnover. It promotes gossip, and it has physical and mental health repercussions. And I think the reality is that in most organizations, conflict is handled poorly, and that's why it gets a bad rap. So what I want to suggest to you is retrain your mind about the goodness of conflict in your organization. And if you can do that, I think you're going to be motivated then to actually be better at managing it yourself. If you see healthy management and expression of conflict as a sign of organizational health, you are going to think about how you handle this totally differently. You will become actively involved in curating and harnessing conflict to good ends. You'll stop sweeping it under the rug or pretending it doesn't exist or trying to smash it at a very high cost. Okay, so second tip is empowering your team to handle conflict well. So if you have had this mind shift, if you believe conflict is a healthy part of your organization and that it needs to be handled well, then as a leader, you need to make the investment in your team, giving them the skills and the support to handle conflicts. I am really dumbstruck by leaders who will say, oh, we welcome difference. Oh, we welcome diversity. Oh, we're all about inclusion. But then they don't provide their team members with practical tools and skills for handling the necessary conflicts that will emerge in a diverse environment. So investing in high quality training and coaching, yes, it is a cost up front, but I want to say it's an investment in cost savings because it will result in higher productivity and lower turnover, and healthier relationships, and really capitalizing on the advantage of the diversity that you as a leader say you want. My best clients are always the ones who are making that investment before conflict becomes bitter, acrimonious, and negative. They are investing to build the capacity of their team. It's not impossible, but it is much harder to rebuild after bitter conflict has burned relationships, ruined trust, and taken goodwill away. Let me give you an example of one of my long-term clients. This is a client who manages literally hundreds of people working across the United States. He's somebody who, in his own professional life, and he's been very successful, has seen the value of leaning into conflict, of taking on hard conversations, and of not being afraid to talk about and discuss differences. And he made a decision several years ago that it would be a long-term investment in his team and in the health of his organization to make sure that everybody across the country in the organization under his management actually has the opportunity to get trained in skills of negotiation, conflict management, and difficult conversations. As somebody who has worked with his team over an extended number of years, I can't tell you how much this has impacted this organization in a productive way. The morale is incredibly high. The ability of this company to actually grow its customers, to grow its market share in its industry, has also been profound. And I really think a lot of this has to do with a leader who sees the value of investing in his people, providing them with training, providing them with support. Okay, third, solicit advice, feedback, and counsel of all of your stakeholders whenever you do need to make a decision. So it is sometimes the case that in your role as leader, you need to make a decision. In fact, as a leader, the buck does stop at your door, whether you like it or not. And sometimes you're making a decision where your team or members of your team have very different viewpoints about what the strategy should be, or who's right and who's wrong, or who should be held accountable. Those situations sometimes really can't be put to committee, or they shouldn't be put to committee. And I get that it's actually really lonely to be a decision maker in these times, when your team can't agree unanimously on, let's say, the best advertising strategy. Or maybe it's not your team, maybe it's your family, and they're never going to align perfectly about whether you're going to summer vacation in the country, or at the beach, or in the city. So in these situations, the best advice I can give you is to solicit the advice and feedback of the wise counsel of all of the relevant stakeholders. So you want to make sure that the people who are going to be affected have been consulted. You also want to talk to peers. Sometimes it can even be helpful to bring in experts who may have some insight on this decision. Another important thing here is at the very start, you want to signal clearly to the people in your organization exactly how a decision will be made. So if you're going about soliciting viewpoints to inform your decision, but the decision will be yours, make that clear to others. If instead you've actually decided you are going to make this a poll and just cede to the majority view, make that clear as well. Sometimes you may have a different decision rule, but clarity about the decision-making rule is a demonstration of wise leadership, and soliciting the counsel of the stakeholders always demonstrates leadership. Some years ago, I was working with a client who really deeply cared about collaborative decision-making. I mean, they were just a great client to work with. And this group was tasked with starting a new and pioneering initiative within a much larger institution. The supervisor actually formally had the authority to make any decisions she wanted, but she hired me explicitly because she wanted a decision that would really solicit the wisdom of others, and her hope was that the parties would come to a consensus decision. Over many months, we worked in a very detailed process. Unfortunately, over time, it became more and more clear that consensus wasn't going to be possible. But this leader had been very wise because up front she had indicated that if possible she wanted the group to reach consensus, but if not, she would retain authority to make the final decision. And here's what's really amazing. When the final decision was rendered, she received virtually unanimous acclaim.
Wow!
Not just for the decision, but also for the process that she used to get those opinions. And I want to be clear, even the people who disagreed with her decision gave her unanimous acclaim and support. So, to be a better leader when it comes to conflict management, remember these 3 steps. First, do your own work. Shift your attitude toward conflict. Normalize it as a force of organizational good. Second, empower the members of your team to handle conflict well. Give them the training, the coaching, and the support they need to reduce the cost of conflict later. And third, when you are charged with making a decision as a leader, always solicit the advice, the feedback, and the counsel of the stakeholders. And of course, to continue to grow as a leader and a manager of conflict, watch this next video, How to Have Difficult Conversations. Of course, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell. And if you're interested in getting your own training for your team, reach out to me at the Cambridge Negotiation Institute or at bobbordone.com. I'm Bob Bordone. Thanks for watching. Let's keep negotiating together. This next video is awesome. Keep watching.